Hi, and welcome to Your Future, Your Finances. I'm your host again, Brian Kuhn. Welcome to the show. We have a great segment for you today. We're talking again about the process of finding and working with a financial planner. We have a guest with us today, Rich Ellinger of Wealthminder.com. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Brian.
Before we get into what you're looking for in someone or how to interact with that person, tell us a little bit about Wealthminder and its service.
Sure. So we're a company that basically is trying to solve the problem that we believe most people want a human advisor involved in their finances. That could be ranged from they want to delegate to an advisor to they just want validation from a human being. But the reality is most people aren't fundamentally self-directed. But the problem historically has been economics between the advisor and the client, that for most people it just doesn't work. And so ultimately the goal of the company is to try and solve that problem.
And what are you finding people are concerned about these days with their finances? I'm sure there's lots of things, but
yeah, I mean, obviously you have all the normal things you'd expect, right? Like young couples planning for college with a kid, or retirement income. But I'd say some of the things that maybe are a little less obvious that we're seeing a lot of these days, particularly since we're in the online world, is 401k, which often for many people, particularly the younger you get, is likely to be their most important financial asset. And often they don't get a lot of help, right, from their company or someone with that. And the other is actually millennials looking to sort of get off on the right foot. So we see a lot of people coming in saying, hey, I want to figure out my budgeting, begin to save, think about how to reduce debt, sort of all the things they should be thinking about.
And when you say coming in, so again, this is a site, so you're actually extracting these people from the internet, so to speak, who go on and search for things. How's that technology changing how they find their person?
Yeah, so as you know, historically referrals have pretty much been the number one way that people sort of connect, right? They ask their friends, you know, who do you use, do you like them, and that's how they find the individual. But now obviously there's a lot more information available online for people to actually research and compare advisors, and you know, we're one such site. You know, there's some actually put out by the industry. But yeah, people come in, they search for something on the internet, and ultimately they land on our site, and they have the ability to sort of browse and search our directory of advisors, as well as the ability to say, hey, help me find an advisor. I really don't know how to go through this process. Let me answer some questions about what I'm looking for, and I'll tell you sort of here are some people that might fit for you. I'd say the other way technology, though, is changing things is you have the rise of what are called robo-advisors. And basically, for people who aren't familiar with those, there are ways that people can sort of set up an account very easily, fund it with cash, and have it invested in a well-diversified portfolio at low cost. And you know, they're great for people who are just looking for basic investment management. But what they don't handle is sort of all the other things an advisor traditionally would help you with that sort of go beyond just that basic investment management.
Does everybody, you think, need to work with someone?
I don't know that everybody does, but I think more than probably currently do should, because I think the number one reason why most people would benefit from a financial advisor, the analogy I like to use is the personal trainer analogy, right? So it's not like most people don't know how to exercise, but most people aren't disciplined enough to do it. And you know, one of the things that is tough for a financial advisor to sell, but I think is actually one of the most valuable things they provide, is basically keeping people from shooting themselves in the foot, right? It's sort of that behavioral discipline, if you will. And so for most people, I think that's, you know, if nothing else, that's a reason why they probably would want to work with an advisor.
So they go on the site and they fill out this information. What are some of the things they say they're looking for typically?
Sure. So you mean in terms of what they're looking for in an advisor? Yeah, so you know, some people are more familiar with the lingo in the industry, right? So you'll see people that use some of the terms around how advisors are compensated, terms like fee only or fee based. You'll see people looking for an advisor who has certain credentials, like a CFP, for example. You know, one of the things they don't necessarily say, but becomes very clear when you interact with them, is that trust factor, right? Because at the end of the day, you know, when you're hiring an advisor, I think that's the number one thing. You're trying to create a personal relationship with a person, and it's important that you sort of implicitly trust them, and that's the hardest thing to sort of quantify, if you will.
I guess they could end up having one who's far away nowadays. Location is less important.
Yeah, so an interesting thing we see is over 60% of the people who come in and request help with an advisor actually say they're fine working with a remote advisor. Now, I think the reality is people still would prefer, all else being equal, to have somebody that if they wanted to, they could sort of walk in their front door and talk to them. But we are seeing, sort of with the advent of technology, Skype and sort of whatever video conferencing technology you prefer, it's much easier to work with folks remotely. And then you've also got technology itself that helps with, we don't always have to interact. Particularly younger people often want to do a lot of the stuff online and sort of get the information online. And then only sort of if and when they need to, let's have a conversation about it.
Yeah. So you match up through these proposals that I guess the planners get. So are you finding that certain individuals gravitate more towards things that the planner is offering, or what? In other words, like what makes a good match between the people?
Sure. So I think the number one thing is that personal relationship, right? So at the end of the day, communication is important, right? Different advisors have very different differing styles of communication, which is why the way our process works is the proposal process is really sort of, here's why, as an advisor, here's why I'm the person you might want to talk to. Here's the type of client I typically work with. Hopefully it's somebody who's like myself. And then it's really that conversation that they have, that initial conversation they have with the advisor, that really, I think, helps them figure out if it's a good fit. And I think some of the things they're looking for beyond the basics, right? That the person maybe has certain qualifications, a certain amount of experience perhaps.
Sure.
But it's like, how are you going to communicate with me? Do our communication styles mesh, right? Do you actually handle clients that are like me, right? Because generally speaking, when you pick an advisor, you probably don't want to be the oddball, if you will. You prefer to be sort of in the mainstream for that advisor.
Yeah.
So those are a few things. But ultimately, I think it's, can we interact, and does it feel good, right? Does this feel like somebody that I can implicitly trust with whatever they're going to tell me? Because ultimately that's what I need out of an advisor at some level.
Yeah, absolutely. Great stuff. We got to take a break. We'll be right back. You're watching Your Future, Your Finances. We're speaking with Rich Ellinger of Wealthminder.com. We'll be right back.